Do you have any ideas what it's gonna focus on?
So if I had to say, I would say if I had to make three predictions for chapter 325, I would say either A, we move back to All Might. We see what happened with the conversation between him and Stain, because that's what we've been trying to figure out, why Stain is shadowing them.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Anime Ramble. Today I got a special guest for you. Guest, introduce yourself.
What's going on, everybody? It's Dan from Dan Exclaims.
Dan, thank you for joining me for this video. I really didn't think you were when I reached out, but you know, I'm glad you could be here.
Nah, man, that's what we do. In the anime community, we gotta lift each other up. That's how it works around here. No competition.
I agree 100%. But Dan, you have a very interesting theory video I saw for chapter 324 involving the principal. Now, for the life of me, I've been trying to figure this out since probably a traitor was announced in My Hero Academia, and Hirokoshi has done a great job of just like keeping that tension throughout the entire series and building it up. So it's always been a subplot, and like now that we're here, it's kind of like, well, we've probably hit rock bottom in terms of plot. So it's definitely coming in full circle to who it could possibly be. What was like the major driving force to why you thought it was the principal, or do you still think it's the principal?
So, I would say I have a theory that I'm going to be making a video about, because I'm very, if you notice on my channel, I stay away from the UA trader stuff. Actually, my channel likes to say that I am the UA trader, which is hilarious. It's been a push narrative for a while now. For like the past 2 years, people will just come on my comments and be like, Dan's the UA trader.
He's writing himself the whole time.
Exactly. And it's like, it's one of those things that I try to stay away from the UA trader, because I don't want to be... I don't want to say I want to be, because I take plenty of L's on my channel. Everyone knows that my Compass Kid L is probably my biggest L, and I love it till this day. Like, but when I was thinking about Nezu, I was thinking about why he would have reason to dislike humanity, because when you first meet him, he says, like, it's like a joke, like it's sarcastically said that you would think that since he's been experimented on by humans, that he would have this grudge against them. Yeah. So eventually it grew into, is he the UA traitor, or does he have such a grudge against All For One that he will do anything he possibly can to prevent All For One from finding people that he cares about? He just has like a soul grudge against him because he was the one who experimented on him, because we all know that All For One likes, you know, as he says, he likes strong quirks because he thinks of them as fine wine.
Yeah.
So he sees this rodent that has a quirk, or he sees he has a rodent that he experiments on to create a super smart animal. The thing that comes with...
Too.
What happened?
I said a very powerful quirk too.
Exactly. Like he literally, his quirk is he flicks a coffee cup and a building falls over. So like with high specs, he's able to do so much. So it's either, my two theories were either A, he is working for All For One. That's why you have things like the gate being able to be, you know, broken and stuff like that. And B would be, you know, he hates All For One so much that he's willing to sacrifice anything in his way to make sure that All For One doesn't succeed. That's why he created this whole UA barrier and all that as well. But I have a theory about who the UA traitor might be, because remember how they were referencing it in what was it, like chapter 250 or something like that, when they're talking, when Endeavor's talking to the principal and he's like, wait, what about this? And that was supposed to hint. I think that hint was towards Toga. I don't think the hint was towards the UA traitor. I think that they're really starting to take into consideration everything finally. They're not throwing caution to the wind. They're trying to meticulously think about everything that All For One could possibly do, and anything that any villain might possibly do. So now that Toga is away from the fray, she could take the appearance and the quirk of anybody. So as long as she has a consistent flow of blood, she could be posing as anybody within the UA barrier. So I think that's what they were referring to. Now, you'll watch my video on this eventually, but my theory is now that Deku is the UA traitor and he doesn't even know it. Do you keep up on Vigilantes at all?
No, I don't. Other than when I like needed to read it, everything that happened with the
Shirakumo?
Yeah. I was like, I was in it for that hot second. I actually watched your videos on it, breaking down who he was and everything like that.
Oh, word. All right. Yeah, dude. It's Shirakumo is probably one of my favorite characters in the entire series. And now that we've seen that Aizawa has been talking to him every single day, I really hope that they take some time out, because they're rushing towards the end of My Hero Academia now with light speed, so they have to slow down a little bit because Horikoshi says that's going to be ending in a year and a half or so. So they still have to slow down, or else it'll end in October at this point.
Right.
So, my theory for who the UA traitor actually is Deku, because of the initial quirk of Stockpile.
Okay.
We've seen that All For One leaves remnants of himself in the quirks that he hands out. We've seen that in 3 different instances. The first instance is when Shigaraki is at the end of the war arc, when he gets taken over by All For One. That's the first time he takes over somebody's body and influences them. The second time is when he blows up Lady Nagant. The third time happened in Vigilantes last week, when he's inside of the mind of the main antagonist. So I think whenever he hands off a quirk, a remnant of him still lingers inside of that person, which means that he sees everything that's going inside of Deku right now. So Deku is the traitor and he doesn't even know it. That's why he knows where Deku is all the time. That's how he knew that the new One For All was Izuku Midoriya, because he has that piece of him inside of Deku. So that's a theory that I'm going to elaborate a little bit more down the line, but I'm starting to think that if they do elaborate on who the UA traitor will be, I think it might be Nezu, or it might be Deku.
You know, now that you bring that up, Horikoshi pulls a lot from comic books, and one of the main, I don't want to say like a main plot point of villains, is their ability to put in like this kill code or this kill switch into one of the heroes, and upon one trigger word turns them off completely and allows them to work as a double, or in sometimes like triple agent. Have you seen Young Justice?
I was saying, yeah, exactly. How Roy was a clone, and he had no idea that he was the clone the entire time, and all of a sudden he gets, like, someone says like Red Sun or something like that, and they snap, and then the next thing you know, they're on the other side, and he didn't even know. So that's something that, like, also, like, if you want to relate it to anime, you could say it's like Yuji and Sukuna. Like,
absolutely,
he made that deal with Sukuna, and 1 minute out of the day, Yuji has no idea what's going on. So eventually that's going to add up. All of those 1 minutes, or is it 1 minute or 10 minutes, that Sukuna takes over Yuji's body. We don't know what's happening in that minute. And when we find out what happens in that minute, that'll be a huge plot point later on. That could be also something that's going on in My Hero as well.
It would make a lot of sense for the principal if that was the case, given how much time he spent with All For One. It could be the same plot point. But that's interesting. You think principal had that much hatred for humans? He viewed it could be a situation. It turns out he's the traitor, and he just goes on this whole spill like, I've hated all humans. It doesn't matter who you are.
Exactly. he could have that whole, he just had the grudge against humanity itself. Like, he could just turn out to be a villain, and he's like, all of you people are the reason why I am the way I am today. So I figured out how to get all of the youth in and make them bad heroes for me to take out, essentially. Like, that's why, like, more and more as, like, my wheels turned on Nezu, I kind of moved away from him being the traitor a little bit, because I would just try to find his motive. Also, like, the one thing that I tell people is pay attention to the preceding scenes before you know how My Hero always does like a little bit in the beginning that really isn't relevant, and then they break into like the relevance of the chapter. It's like how I knew Ida was going to be one of the major people to help Deku during this arc was because
he was huge.
Because they hinted at him the entire time. If you read that chapter where they're sitting in a circle talking about Deku leaving, the first 2 people that they show is Ida and Achako. So you know that these 2 characters are going to be the 2 characters that stand up for him, that are going to be the ones that have that, you know, that Kirishima to Bakugo relationship where, you know, they need Bakugo back, but they know that the only person that he's going to listen to at the time is Kirishima. So just like how that incident, they had to relate it back and be like, Bakugo isn't the person to reach out his hand right now, because that's not Bakugo. The person to reach out their hand has to be Ida. So that's where context clues come in. You start paying attention more and more and more, and there's this literary device called Chekhov's gun. And Chekhov's gun is, if you see the gun in the first act, the second or third act, that gun has to go off.
Right.
That's the UA barrier. The UA barrier, they've been saying how Shiketsu is around and how the UA barrier can shift them around Japan like that. That tells me an instance is coming. We're gonna have another inciting incident after Deku calms down. Maybe this week, who knows? We might, because I stay away from spoilers. I like my manga like tomorrow. Like I've not seen anything. That's why I'm very happy. Like people start to like respect that on my timeline. That's why like I don't get many spoilers anymore on my timeline, just because of that, because they know that okay, it's Sunday, Dan will have his review out on Wednesday, just because I like to respect the grind and all that.
Yeah, I was never one for spoilers. A lot of people talk about, oh, this was spoiled for me, that's was spoiled for me. Like Demon Slayer was huge. I was like, I never saw one spoiler on Demon Slayer, and I think it's just the timeline. I surround myself with people who they like to get official translations. You get
Exactly.
unofficial, it's just gonna spoil everything that you one thought.
When you don't go by official translations, that's how you might make something wrong in your review, because how they interpret words are different. Like sometimes you don't get the full gravitas of the words. When Sasuke calls Naruto, what is it, Usuri Tonkaichi or something like that, where he calls him an idiot, that's just like an idiot thing, but like it's a completely different thing. It's an insult in Japanese. It's not getting called an idiot. It's like it's a nuance. So that's why like it's one of the main reasons why I wait for that official translation from Caleb, or whether it be David Evelyn and Kaiju number 8. I wait for those because I don't want to be, number one, disrespectful to their jobs, because what's going on right now, they need the money.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
two, it's just also I like to be one-to-one. I don't like to infer a fan scanlation, and that's not trying to throw jabs at fan translators. I respect you guys so much. It's only recently that Viz decided to make this accessible to audiences across the world. And before that, we had to find our own way to keep up with your stuff. We gotta like scour the internet and go on YouTube or something like that to find Dojo. And that's how hard it was. And now you could just walk into a Barnes and Noble and buy part 1 through 6.
Right.
Crazy.
You can't find it, get it online.
Exactly. And they're still pushing out, mind you, they're still pushing out official translations of part 5. Like part 6 hasn't even gotten an official translation yet, let alone part 7 or part 8. So like part 8, like you can't even go on the Shonen app right now and read JoJolion. Till this day, there's still a barrier that you have to jump over to go and read these manga.
Shoot, what was it? Ida. I'm terrible with names.
I try so hard, but like people rip on me all the time because I call the detective, I call him Tsukauchi.
Okay, yeah.
And people are like, it's Tsukayochi, and I'm like, I don't care, man. It's Tsukauchi to me. Whatever. Like or the age old debate of academia, and academia.
Oh,
that's like the age old debate of which of the three that you pronounce. Like Pineapple does academia, I do academia, everybody else does the third, and I'm like, all right, whatever. It's like it's however you want to pronounce it, as long as people know what you're doing, you good. So Ida, go for it.
I looked at that moment when he had reached out for Deku's hand, and it took me 2 times to get through it, but I was like, wait, that's his left hand, if I'm getting it right. That's his left hand, the one that got injured versus Stain, and he said he wasn't going to get it fixed until he felt himself as a true hero. And I feel like you really saw that throughout, I'd say these probably last 3 chapters, where he really had to not just help to control the civilians, but also keep the other heroes from just doing their job and getting in there and trying to really back up Midori. He was like, nah, this is his moment. This is Uraraka's moment. The civilians need, not for all of us to say that he's good, because they know we cool with him, but for them to believe it themselves.
Absolutely.
But speaking of the civilians and Toga and Dabi and everything, because we got the flashes. Hirokoshi's he's not being coy about any of this. He's letting you know this is definitely building up. And the one driving point, I'd say, like my last 3 chapters, is that one civilian, the one with the All Might shirt on. I was like, he's a little bit too adamant about this. And given Toga's quirk and the possibility of it having, like, evolved, leveled up, progressed, their whole defense system might not be enough. If she's able to, even if she was able to increase her duration for how long she can maintain it by 60 seconds, that's long enough for her to get in, find another person, and do what she got to do. Let people in the back door.
Person to person.
Right. And All Might's appearance, now he's always looked sickly, all right? He always looked like he had the Itachi disease, but he doesn't look himself with the dark eyes and stuff at the very end of the scene. So if Toga was to get in, like, do you see her already being in, or this is something that's gonna progress next chapter or within the
a few things, because I think that it's inevitable for one of the League of Villains or multiple of the League of Villains to betray the League. and become more of an anti-hero. I think those two will end up being Toga and Spinner because they align more with Stain's values of a true hero needs to exist, only that of being a true hero, somebody who doesn't do anything for accolades or money. But also, Toga's thing is, remember, she just wants to live.
That's true.
She is the definition of a character whose quirk took control of their head. So you can have people like Vlad King, who controls blood and not be obsessed with it. The problem is, it's his blood, Vlad King's. He can control blood. Toga's is she ingests it. She becomes fascinated with it. And that's because of quirk society and how society has that's something that Horikoshi more tackles in Vigilantes is quirk discrimination that he really finally started taking more advantage of with introduction of the big fox lady.
You can talk about Vigilantes if you want to. I'm not too worried about spoilers.
All right, so in Vigilantes, there's this the drug trigger is a huge plot point of Vigilantes, and one of the things that trigger does is it causes people with like normal quirks to go absolutely monstrous. So one of these guys turns into a huge praying mantis. And the thing is that he talks about is how he can't go to the bathroom in public places. He can't go into certain places in general because he's a heteromorph. Right. He's literally a monster. So places don't let him in general. It's the same thing that happened to the current person right now, the Fox Lady in My Hero Academia. So they don't tackle that as much in My Hero Academia that they do in the social issues of the world that they do in Vigilantes, because there's a guy that's Tsukauchi's partner, Tanuma. Tanuma refers to the main antagonist of Vigilantes as a thing. And and then afterwards he goes, oh, wait, I'm not supposed to refer to people as monsters. That's right. We have a law now that talks about it. So you have that drawback of people believing that people don't belong somewhere because of how they look or how they speak or whatever it might be. So that's like a huge part of My Hero that really is never tackled.
Yeah. It's touched on briefly.
Exactly. When it comes to Toga's quirk, first of all, if she's hiding within UA, she's plotting. She's thinking, because remember her when she tackles Achako through the restaurant during the war, and then she's like, can you see a future where you and I are both smiling? And Achako doesn't have an answer. And that's why, like, when she says it to Deku, she immediately thinks of Toga, because Toga comes at her with a genuine fact. Do you see a future where you and I could possibly smile together? You don't. So how could you say that you want a future where everybody lives in harmony if you know that your harmony means my destruction? So Toga's going through an identity crisis right now where she doesn't align with Shigaraki's values, but she aligns more with the hero's values, but she aligns with her own more, and they don't align with either of their values anymore. So Toga is, I wouldn't say she's scheming, I would say she's hiding as hard as she can because she doesn't know what she wants to do next. I think the next step for her would be to meet up with Stain.
It does bring a new meaning to Identity Crisis.
It really does.
Yeah. Stain? Yeah.
It's my favorite villain, man. Till this day, will always be my favorite villain in My Hero Academia because he's the truest villain out of every single one of them. You ask me about Shigaraki, he doesn't have a good enough reason to be a villain.
He's brainwashed, in my opinion. You know, he has a
Yeah, he's the definition of a brainwashed individual that goes so far off the deep end that he's like Obito at this point, where Obito was so brainwashed by the death of Rin and by seeing what Kakashi did that he just becomes a bad guy. That could necessarily be the same thing that's going on with Shigaraki right now. That's why I say the truest villain in the heart of what it means to be a villain is Stain. Because he murders people that he doesn't believe are worthy of the title of hero. That's a villain.
That's a villain, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I love him as a character so much, is because he embodies that Western feel of you aren't good enough to even say my name, you're dead. And he'll go around just killing heroes for the sake of it. If you had to like rank villains for me, I would say that like the top 3 in general are All for One, Stain, and Re-Destro. because Reed Destro has a better reason, because Reed Destro's dad is the guy that is the name quirk is named after him.
Yeah.
Like he's like one strives for liberation, one strives for complete total domination, the other one strives for people to be the best that they possibly can be. So in a way, Stain is like a reverse Flash, where he wants the Flash to be the best version of himself.
Yep.
So like that's why like I really love the fact that My Hero is well, it was at least, it was creating foils for each one of their heroes. So like it started with Ida. Ida has Stain. Then it goes to Todoroki. Todoroki has Dabi. Then you have Deku. Deku has Shigaraki. You have Ochako, who has Toga. Bakugo needs his bag. That's the person I need next. I need Bakugo to find a nemesis. Everyone is building an arch nemesis except for him. I get that he's trying to be on the same level as Deku, but he's never had the person who personally attack him like Deku has, like Toga has, like Ida has, on that molecular level of, I'm coming for you because you pissed me off, and now I have this inhuman grudge against you. I say that Bakugo is the next person. Like, even Kirishima has that in Rappa. Like,
that's true.
He's the only character, and he's going through an astronomical amount of growth right now.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say maybe Hirokoshi's lining him up to have not necessarily that external one-on-one, but definitely that internal one-on-one. That's what I got from him, like the whole apology thing, like, because it didn't come across as him just, okay, I'm just saying this as a tactic to calm you down.
No, he actually meant it.
Yeah,
that was the thing that all of us were waiting for as well. We were wondering when, we don't want Bakugo to have some sort of half-assed apology. We want him to actually, we want to look at it and we want to tear up and we want to be like, okay, that's an apology that we can get behind because we know that he means it finally. We don't want him to just be like, I'm sorry, whatever. No, we want a scene where Deku is at his lowest point that he could possibly be, and hit after hit after hit after hit brings him back, and then the guy that one day told him to go kill himself apologizes for every mean thing that he said to him. And that happened. So now, in my opinion, after this, Bakugo and Deku, they're good. They squashed the beef. That's it. The beef is finally squashed between them. Now they can move forward. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes after what's going on right now. That's why I think that we're going to take a break from Deku for a little bit, because we've been so focused on him since the beginning of the summer, almost like May-ish. We've been so hyper focused on Deku's development that now it has to break and show you what's going on with All for One, show you what's going on with Shigaraki, maybe at the same time show you that some of the students are encroaching on them. So I wouldn't be surprised if eventually the story breaks away from Deku for a little bit to maybe elaborate on who the traitor might be, or maybe to even move into who or what Toga is posing as.
I can see it taking a break, because Hirikoshi set up a lot. We know that right before the principal and Endeavor gave the green light for the students to go off and find Deku, he had made the announcement that the foreign heroes had just gotten approved to come overseas. Yes. So I think we're going to take a step away, explore the foreign heroes, definitely get a lot of insight to that, because I want to say this is the first time we've gone overseas with foreigners before. But I know that brings in a lot of talk. Maybe not a lot of talk, but we have to bring this around eventually. At least I would assume to Deku's father, given the hereditary ties of quirks. His father having one, him not having one, the mysteriousness surrounding it. I'm under the impression he's captured. Again, going back to comic books, scientist steals another scientist, forces them to, do experiment stuff. He might, I don't know. We would have heard about him if he was a hero by now. If he was any good or even terrible.
That's why but that's why I think that he's a government official. I think that he is Deku's dad.
I'd agree.
Like when you think about his quirk, he breathes fire.
Yeah.
Which means that he's an angry person, probably. Or he's a soft-spoken person that will have outbursts. Everyone's quirk kind of resembles who they are as a person when you think about it. Ochako is a person of levity. She's always going to bring kindness and happiness to a situation. Her quirk lifts things up, Yeah. Ida always cuts to the chase. Always lets you know how he's feeling right off the bat. He told Deku he didn't like him the first time he met him. It's very short and to the point. A to B. He's a speedster. Bakugo, come on. So Deku's dad, I wouldn't be surprised if Deku's dad was a very quick-tongued person. So quick-tongued person, wow, I just whistled. A quick-tongued person might be somebody who's a diplomat. Now, if you're a diplomat, right now, the current situation in Japan, he wouldn't be going back to Japan anytime soon. He'd be brokering those deals to bring in those heroes from other countries. He'd be the person that's maybe talking about that with and sitting at the table with world leaders and people to talk to them about what needs to happen in Japan. Remember, the crime rate, this happens in Vigilantes, they talk about it. The crime rate in every other country is over 30%. In every country except Japan because of All Might. That's literally the only reason why. So now that Japan has literally probably a 60%, you have people that might be government officials, their job just got a lot worse, which means that Deku's dad ain't coming home anytime soon because he's doing so much. And I know my boy Pineapple's got the dad for all theory. Or dad for one. Dad for one. Dad for one. He thinks all for one is his father. Yeah. He's a strong pusher.
Some Aizen type plot line. Actually, that's further than Aizen. He had him himself. Okay.
Yeah, he like created the perfect vessel.
And he can transform too. If he had a quirk that allowed him to transform in it, wow, that's dark. Okay.
Yeah. That's why a lot of people have said that he made, because like I've said that the injury to his face, that's not his face. The injury is the injury to his throat. That's why he has a respirator that like operates his lungs for him.
I noticed
that face. That face is just his face. That's how he masks his identity. Because when he takes Shigaraki over, his face becomes that face. When he's inside of the singularity, that face is his face. So why when you're a ghost of yourself, why would you still mask your identity? You want to hide it from people. So that's like, people could say all they want that that's the injury that All Might gave to him. I would say the injury that All Might gave to him is the fact that he has to breathe through a tube for the rest of his life.
Yeah, that seems something a little bit more permanent than a crushed face.
His face looks scarred from fire. Like that's what it looks like. It looks like his face has been melted because of fire. It doesn't or it doesn't look like a scar from a punch.
And Horikoshi, I'll say it, he emphasizes it more than any other mangaka. Scars and self-damage, you're not going to heal that away. So I can definitely see that being a situation of him breathing fire to an extent to where he just annihilated his entire face.
Yeah.
Dang, full circle.
I really do think that the whole his face being scarred up and stuff like that, that's just his hero mask. Just like how Deku throws up the hood, that's how he throws up his hood.
Okay, that would make sense. And this would had to have been out the blue. I wouldn't be able to get behind her mom, his mom, not being able to see any of this at all.
Inko is very... That's why Inko is very...
It's a big plot hole. I'm just going to throw that out there. Like,
yeah, well, yeah, because the one thing, even a lot of manga really elaborate eventually on the parents. Like, one of my favorite scenes is in Naruto, when you're sitting there and everybody is like, oh, the fourth Hokage is his dad, the fourth Hokage is his dad. And then you have the scene where there's just a woman with red hair standing in front of him, and then it hits you, oh my god. The entire time I've been wondering who his dad is. I never once thought about who his mom might be.
Never.
And his mom is the original Jinchuriki. Yeah. Like, that's something that blows you away, because you're like, I can't believe I was so tunnel visioned out of that I didn't even possibly think about the mother. And think about how if Namikaze is his dad's name, where does the Uzumaki come from, kind of thing.
Right.
And you find out that the Uzumaki clan is as esteemed as the Senjus and the Uchiha. So he's also from a clan that has a rich history as well that he knows nothing about. Mind you, is a huge plot hole as well, because I don't understand how nobody was like, oh my god, he's an Uzumaki. That guy, the previous woman that was an Uzumaki was the nine-tailed fox, Jinchuriki. How
just
did we
completely
not put two and two
ignored
together?
His entire last name.
Exactly. They're not even that. They address you by your last name.
True.
in Japan. So it's like everybody was just kind of shrugging that off. It kind of threw me off. I was like, what?
Was his mom? Nah, it couldn't be.
No, it's not his mom. It wouldn't be his mom.
I was like, Midoriya writes so much stuff down. That could be another.
That's also that could be a trait of his father's as well.
Yeah, the hyper attentiveness to detail.
That's why also people are like, since he has such a fascination with quirks, the only other person that has emphasized their absolute fascination with quirks is All For One.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why people have been trying to draw the line between those two characters, because of it.
I think I'm about to hop on the pineapple train and throw my bid in with the
good. Yell at him and tell him to make a video, man. I literally hit him up on Twitter all the time, and I'm just bullshitting with him, and I'm like, dude, like, you got to make a video. It's like you and I share the same subscribers, man.
Yeah.
It's like when you put out a video, the tide like rises a little bit, and people go, who's this Dan Exclaims guy?
I think y'all are both the ones that I go to for my Hero videos.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm gonna have to throw my bid in for that, for the whole All For One being the father.
Dad for one.
Dad for one. That's Dad for one theory. Kind of like on some again, going back to comics and Hirokoshi, just Star Wars, Emperor Palpatine playing both sides of the field, doing his Sith stuff on the Empire half, and he's also destroying the Jedi Society on the inside politically.
Yeah. And the one thing that I always tell people too is to always keep that in mind when you're reading My Hero, because if you notice the hands that people get their hands destroyed, and the two people that have had their right hand like destroyed was Deku and Shigaraki, or left hand destroyed was Deku and Shigaraki, and that is a classic Star Wars move to destroy the left and right hand. Every single person in phase 1, I think it's phase 1 or phase 2 of Marvel, there's someone getting their hand cut off. That's how much they embed that Star Wars. People love Star Wars so much. And Horikoshi actually has a picture of him as Kylo Ren going to see the premiere in Japan. He went dressed up as Kylo Ren so nobody knew it was him. And he went and saw The Force Awakens, or I think it was The Last Jedi, dressed as Kylo Ren.
Oh, that's dope.
So, and like if you see his desk has Spider-Man and his desk has Batman. So he's so influenced, and that's why I love his style of writing, because it's the first, in my opinion at least, the first manga that really draws on Western comics and really likes to not beat the dead horse with callbacks, call shout outs to Western audiences, but there are clear instances that just go, yeah, that's a shout out to the Flash. Yeah, it's a shout out to Batman. All Might is a clear shout out to Superman. That you have Twice is Deadpool. Yeah, you have so many characters that just relate back to different characters in the DC universe or in the Marvel universe. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if eventually you get like a symbiote type of character, and you have like a Venom type of character after that, because they've been trying to establish so much going on in the My Hero Academia universe that I wouldn't be surprised. Like, if the sludge villain was able to take over Bakugo, that's your symbiote. There you go. And that's literally him taking over somebody's body in a parasitic relationship. He's Venom.
I thought the Nomu for a second were gonna be like that symbiote, like army, mindless army that they were just gonna unleash upon everybody.
Yeah, I would say.
Well, I don't see it happening now, but like when they were first introduced, I was like, it was that mindless aspect, because I don't think he was gonna create another race and drop him down from the sky. But I actually thought his before we knew what the sevenths was for One For All, I was like, okay, All Might keeps feeding him food and telling him he needs to keep his energy up. Is this gonna be like just straight speed? Like, I thought it was like he's burning so much calories. Flash callback. He needs to eat, but it was more stockpile. I mean, I'm glad he didn't go just with the clear cut 1 for 1 from the Western, but I think it's where a lot of people fall off and don't catch those things, because the manga community generally, it's really just manga. We're not reading comics, and I can't really see comic book people diving so much into manga. It more so now than ever, but a lot of it goes just under the radar for people.
Yeah. What the problem is, I think comics aren't as accessible as manga. And there's not a lot of people that know about apps like Comixology and stuff like that. That's why, like, you have people that go on YouTube and they watch Comicstorian or
Comics Explained.
Comics Explained. Yeah. You have them who they literally act out entire arcs. They explain they don't even give like a review. It's literally a panel by panel reading of what's happening in their stories. So that's why I feel like manga readers like to read it themselves and then go and watch somebody's opinion on it.
It's true.
Because they want to build their own opinion and see if somebody's opinions match up with theirs. Now, if you want to know about what happens in Blackest Night or what happens in Brightest Day, you go and watch Comicstorian and he just breaks it down for you and you don't get to read it yourself. So, like, one of my favorite Flash comics is Blackest Night, the variant for the Flash, where Barry Allen comes back from the dead and he's resurrected by the Black Ring and then travels in time 1 second ahead, so the ring gets confused and runs and searches for a new person to take over.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, and then that's how Barry comes back to life. It's because the ring resurrects him and then he uses his speed to get away from the ring. So, like, when you just see someone explain that to you, the gravitas of that is diluted because you want to know how Barry is able to do what he does. You want to know how Barry becomes worthy of the Blue Ring of Hope. You want to know why these things happen. I don't want someone to explain it to me. I want it to be explained to me if I don't understand it after the fact. And that's what manga readers like to do. Manga readers like to see if we're reading manga, we enjoy the author. Like, that's a big thing about the people that are anime onlys. Anime onlys will never experience Horikoshi's art. They will experience what a animator has redrawn. So if you want to experience the actual drawing, the actual feel of what this artist is doing, you have to read the manga. You have to read the comic. That's the big part of this medium that people tend to neglect is, yeah, you can watch my videos, you can watch your videos, but you really should also read it for yourself because you should build your own feelings about it and then see if me or you, we line up together, you know?
I think it's that personal, intimate connection that you get with the mangaka because this is literally them, especially in the early stages. Like, if you're reading volume 1, I can almost guarantee that it's probably drawn entirely by them.
Yeah.
And
Facts.
Going back to the big three, Bleach, right? It gets a lot of flack, but one thing the anime gets a lot of flack. But if you know people and you speak to people who have read all 3 mangas and you ask them, hey, who had the best art? They're gonna say Kubo, like almost indefinitely. His art is just on an entirely different level, and it painted a picture better than in anime because there's just certain strokes and stuff that you can't do with animation that you can with pencil, pen, and paper or whatever they have.
So much that you can do with that simple brush stroke that an anime or an animated movie cannot do. Like, one of my favorite, so in comparison between manga and comics, my favorite manga scene is when Naruto is standing there and half of his face is black with the red eye because he's getting taken over by Kurama, and the other side is his normal face and he's crying looking at his mom. That is arguably one of the greatest drawn panels that Kishimoto ever did. And
I know exactly
it's just and all that it is just a drawing of Naruto, and you're able to infer so much from it. My favorite My Hero panel will always be Shigaraki standing on the hand and everything disintegrating around him. Now, the actual anime versions of those were kind of diluted. They didn't really give me the same feeling that they gave me when I read it. So, like, when I read those pivotal scenes and I get to see that and feel it and just take it in and stare at it for a while, and you're able to see how the artist draws exhaustion under their eyes, or the way that, like, in animation, like, it's really, really, really hard to animate water, but it's a beautiful thing when an artist figures out how to draw water. So when you see those tears in their eyes, you're like, it's so much better than looks like bubbles flying out of their face. or a stream running down their face, he's actually able to depict that. And the flip side would be in comics. I don't know if you've ever heard of Hush, but
No,
there's there's a comic called Hush, and it's Batman trying to figure out who Hush is. And one of the scenes is Poison Ivy takes control of Superman using, her pheromones.
Right.
And Batman has to dodge Superman as much as he can. So in a monologue in his head he's like talking about Clark. He never calls him Superman. Goes Clark, da 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 da. He goes, if Clark wanted to, he can smash me into the pavement without even thinking. The thing is, his mental state is so strong that he's still fighting against what's going on right now inside of his head. He's still fighting off Poison Ivy. That's why he's not slamming me into a puddle right now. But he goes, and this is the line that gets me every single time. He goes, deep down, Clark is always going to be a genuinely good person. And then you see him go into his utility belt, and he flicks out a kryptonite ring, and he goes, but deep down, I'm not. And he cracks Superman in the face with that kryptonite ring and starts beating the shit out of him. And that, in the Batman Hush movie, was so diluted and so disgusting, it did such a disservice to that comic that I turned off the movie. I was like, this is such a good scene that they have just taken and destroyed it, that it's not even worth to continue watching. That's how I felt when I saw Naruto animated standing in front of Kushina. That's how I'm probably gonna feel when Shigaraki is standing on the hand when the quirk awakening happens in 2 episodes.
Now that you mention it, I forgot that that was this arc, and they probably been saving their entire budget for when Miracle gets on the scene.
It's a possibility.
Yeah, because you was going through the whole anime versus manga, and I've never been that boisterous dude on Twitter when it comes to this manga, the entire 5th season of My Hero Academia. But I kind of get it in that regard, that passion, that stuff, that anime only people, because I don't like shit on anime only watchers, but they're very serious about only watching the anime. You could tell them, look, you're missing entire scenes from the anime, and they're like, well, this is what they got me. And I'm like, dang, all the build up, all the passion and emotion is just not going to be there for when Shigaraki does take the main stage. And then when they finally get to this point in the anime where we are right now in the manga, it's just not going to hit the same.
Yep, absolutely.
It's just not going to hit the same.
Not going to hit the same. And that's something that I feel bad for my fiance. She is an anime only, but she sometimes gets a taste. I'll be like, look at this. Look what just happened in this chapter. And she'll be like, wow, why did you just spoil that for me? But she doesn't get to experience. She doesn't get to experience
both halves
the same way that you and I do, or the way that other people do, because she sticks to anime only, and she's very good at staying away from spoilers on her timeline as well, because she follows things like the Real Housewives and stuff like that. But still, so she's very good at staying away from spoilers, and not a lot of people are, because if you are a 5th season newbie and you join in and you search My Hero on Twitter, the first thing that's going to pop up is a litany of spoilers.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of spoilers. You're just going to be hanging out, and the next thing you know, you're going to see that Shigaraki has white hair, and you're like, what?
One Piece got spoiled for me. I haven't been spoiled since One Piece, and I'm really surprised with myself that I made it through all of Attack on Titans, because I was anime only for Attack on Titans. So I was like, okay, block Attack on Titans, everything on Twitter. Block.
Yeah. I'm sure if you follow me on Twitter, so
yeah.
I'm not a very strong proponent of One Piece.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't see slander.
I'm not. No. I always say I will never slander One Piece. I will just give my honest opinion about it, and I will say that I don't like Luffy as a main character.
Okay.
I think it's a little too whereas people don't like Demon Slayer because of how dark it is, and how it's like constantly like, okay, people are dying left and right, people are getting eaten.
Yeah.
How this is so.
I love
One Piece is.
I'm gonna be honest.
I adored it. One Piece, on the other hand, is levity. It has more levity in it than Bleach and Naruto. It doesn't really like to bring you down dramatically. Like, when I mean bring you down, like, and when it wants to bring you down, it will. I know we're moving away from Nezu being the traitor.
Oh no, you're fine. This is anime ramble. They should already know.
I like my characters to experience character growth that helps me grow along with them and like them as a character. You know, Deku was a crybaby. He wasn't a very likable character in the beginning. He was just this guy that wanted to strive, and eventually, by the third episode, you're like, you know what? I can, or this, not even like the second episode, you're like, you know, this guy, this is a character that I can relate to. He's willing to push himself so hard that he's willing to break his bones to achieve his goal. So you're like, okay, this is a character that I can get behind. It's the same thing with Vigilantes, because the main character of Vigilantes, he actually, they break it down in his story. He actually missed the hero exam to get into UA because he was saving someone's life.
That's right. I think that was the first chapter, right? I think I got on that. I remember they was talking about his quirk, and it really wasn't suitable to be a hero.
Yeah. Well, he's talking about how his quirk sliding glide really isn't suitable to be a hero. Flash forward 5 years, that thing is insane now. If you read Vigilantes, if you have the Jump app, I'm convinced that he could take Deku in a fight now.
Really?
He could stand up to Deku for a while. Deku will beat him eventually, but he is so in tune with his quirk that it's unlike anybody in My Hero Academia. Unlike anybody. That's how good he is with his quirk. The villain throws explosive punches in seconds, and he's able to deflect them like it's nothing now. He actually has a moment where he's about to get like snuffed in the face, and he goes full Ultra Instinct. Like you could definitely hear like the da 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 music, and he just his eyes like he does like the you know, like where the pupils disappear, that kind of anime thing.
Yeah.
And then he just starts moving and sticking and moving, and the guy's like, how is he doing this?
I like that.
How is he able to process what's going on? And it's supposed to tell you that ever since he was a kid, he's had such mastery over his quirk that all that it took was a moment to help him realize how good he was at using his quirk. And now he can shoot projectiles, he can fly, he can move like faster than people with speedster quirks. He's becoming so overpowered. And what I think eventually is going to happen is Vigilantes and My Hero are rushing towards one another. Like, think of it think of it as your hands, and you flip them, like, look at the back of your hands and stretch out your fingers and then move them towards one another and then have them slide into one another. And that's what's happening to Vigilantes and My Hero. They're not going to go on top of each other and move parallel. They're going to slide into one another and create this huge and massive world because they're only like a rock ahead of one another. They're just one stone's throw from being in the same story, in the same predicament. And that's something that Vigilantes does very well, and not enough people read it. People read it to, you know, see the Shirakumo stuff, but nobody reads it to really take in all of the stuff that happens behind the scenes.
Interesting, because Vigilantes is a prequel, right?
It's a prequel that is moving very, very close to the main timeline at this point. It's still a heated debate, and the problem is none of those, like, I don't know if I'm an anime theorist at this point, but like the people that are like really technical, like Ocean and even Pineapple, they haven't really done a dive into the timeline. And a couple of my subs have actually like made like a Venn diagram or like a line diagram to show like when it like happens and how it elapses and stuff. We're all in a phase where we're saying that it's a 5-year backstory, And the reason why we say it's a 5-year backstory is because All Might has his injury.
Okay, that makes sense.
All Might's injury happens 5 years prior to My Hero Academia starting. And when there's like a side chapter where Tsukauchi actually discovers that they're one and the same, that happens in Vigilantes.
Ooh.
Yeah. You see him like they're... So pretty much, this is actually pretty cool. So there's a moment in the series where they have everybody in the room and they're talking about how there's a guy going around killing people. And he's just going around, he's murdering people, and we have to figure out what's going on. He's murdering gangsters, he's murdering heroes, and everyone alike. And then they break into a conversation about how All Might has stopped doing his paperwork. Now, the only reason why he would stop doing his paperwork is if his sidekick left, which means Night Eye is gone.
Huh.
Night Eye leaves after the injury. So, because remember, he's like, I gotta get back out there, I gotta keep on doing what I'm doing, and Night Eye's like, if you go out there, I'm leaving. So, he said that he hasn't been doing his paperwork for the past couple of months. So we could say that My Hero Academia Vigilantes takes place maybe 6 months, maybe 7 months after All Might's serious injury. Now, Vigilantes has a time skip in it, and the time skip has brought us about 3 or 4 years into the present. So we could say that there's a possibility that Vigilantes is taking place now during the American Dream Plan, where Deku is training to obtain One for All, and he's going to get it that January.
Mm-hmm.
We could say that it's in the summer of that year right now. So he's training to get One for All, and that's where we could say that Vigilantes is taking place because of that. It's really hard to line them up, and that's what all of us in the Vigilantes world, by us I mean literally me, because I guess I'm like the only dude that talks about Vigilantes, but
I wanted to just jump into it. I was like, should I make this like me recapping every chapter, or just like read it and just jump in at the most recent one? Because I mean, I like the whole combining aspect, and I'm like, well, it being a prequel, I'm like, why haven't they mentioned the drug at some point? You know what I mean? Like,
they did.
Well, they did, but given them the, I don't know, I guess Vigilantes, if they're trying to crash the timelines, would it mean that the drug would be prevalent, or are they going to end it and then pick it back up and introduce it that way?
Are you talking about Trigger?
Yeah, the Trigger drug.
So that's the thing about Vigilantes. Vigilantes sets up the overhaul raid. That's what a lot of people didn't know.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Because is that the drug he's creating?
Yes.
He's creating... Oh, my God.
He's getting the drugs. Overhaul is getting the drugs from the villain factory, from number 6.
So who's the catalyst? Who's going to push it in? Well, I guess... Because is overhaul apparent in Vigilante? How old would that make him? Like 17? How old?
Maybe around that.
I mean, you would have seen him by now. I mean, I'm running around destroying everything.
Yeah. So it's like, I would say the tainted trigger is being pushed in Vigilantes, but the main thing that is they're pulling strings to figure out what's going on is Fat Gum. Fat Gum appears.
Really?
Fat Gum appears, and he's like, I'm tracking down this drug, and I've been tracking it down for a while, and I'm trying to figure out where it came from. So when he busts up the ring for the tainted trigger, that's what... Now when Fat Gum finds out that Trigger is back in movement, right?
Yeah.
He gets back in it. Now, if you watch the episode where Kirishima, Amajiki, and Fat Gum are walking down the street eating takoyaki, he mentions that he got into this a couple of years ago. That's the one and only reference to My Hero Academia Vigilante. Because he references it and says that he was involved trying to break up Trigger back in the day.
That makes I remember the scene. If I'm remembering correctly, but I didn't have the Vigilante reference. Okay.
Yeah, and that scene where they're walking, it's 1-for-1. So like, I know Pineapple was freaking out because he was like, dude, they're standing outside the shop in Vigilantes when he's eating the takoyaki. And I was like, oh my God, this is the one and only shout out pretty much. The biggest shout out for Vigilantes though is Stain.
His
Stain
role
is a... Stain is a bad guy in Vigilantes.
So he's rampant. He ain't get captured ever.
Well, no, he starts out as Stendhal. He's a vigilante at first.
He's a vigilante?
He's a vigilante at first. Yeah.
Wow.
So
you would imagine someone with his ability, if he started off as a he's always as
remember
heroes.
he wants the world clean of people. Well, of those of people that are bad.
Mm-hmm.
So he has to get to that point where he is stained, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want me to explain it to you or not, because I don't know if you're going to read it. But essentially, in short,
you can explain it. You can explain it. I got it.
Koichi, who's the main character of Vigilantes, is about to get killed by this guy who's hopped up on Trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy appears and slices the dude and then licks the sword. Ooh. And the guy can't do anything. And you're like, no way right now. And him and Stain saves Koichi's life. And Koichi is like, Mr. Stendhal is a great guy. He actually helped me out. He saved my life. And Knuckle Duster, who's like Batman, who's just a old man with no quirk, beating the piss out of people that are quirked. He gets into a fight with Aizawa in like the 3rd chapter, and Aizawa's like, okay, I have to stop fighting you. Turns out you don't have a quirk, and you're just a crazy old dude. So should I call the cops? I don't know. Because if you're not using the quirk, a hero can't come after you. So he realizes that, and he's just like, you know what? You're quirkless. I'll just call the cops. And it escalates because they find out that someone's peddling the trigger and stuff like that, and he turns into a huge kaiju and they have to fight him. But besides that, so they're talking about Mr. Stendhal the entire time and how he's a good dude. Enter Soga, and Soga is Wolverine, essentially. But he's misguided at first. You can really tell that him and his buddies are victims of quirk discrimination. That's literally what they are. They look like bad guys, so people treat them like bad guys when they're not. They're just trying to make it. But the thing is, everyone in the world treats them as like shit.
Yeah.
So they get into a fight with Koichi in the 1st chapter, and they're still stalking him come chapter 8 through 10. And Stendhal shows up and tries to kill Soga. But then Koichi gets in the way and is like, don't kill him. Like, he doesn't deserve to die. He's just misguided, you know. And like that's like the first time that Koichi throws himself in the way of somebody that's trying to genuinely hurt him. And Stendhal is like, you're gonna defend this scum? You know, if you're gonna defend this scum, you're just as bad as him, right? And if you're just as bad as him, that means I have to kill you. So Stendhal then starts attacking Koichi. Then enter Knuckle Duster. Knuckle Duster then says, step away from my student. Your fight's with me now. And then Stendhal is like, oh, I'll just kill you, old man. Get out of my way. Then Knuckle Duster goes into his duster, his big trench coat, and throws out a rope, like a small rope, and just goes, if you cross that line, I'm going to hit you in the face. And Stain's like, what does this old man think? Like I'll just... And then he takes like a counter stance, and he's like, oh, he's going to try to counter punch me, da-da-da-da-da-da. And he goes, but he can't match my superior speed, like some sort of crazy anime villain type of, you know.
Yeah.
So he moves and tries to kill Knuckle Duster, and then Knuckle Duster steps in front of the rope, catches him off guard, and punches him so hard in the face, he crushes his face. That's why Stain's face is the way that it is. Because Knuckle Duster crushed his face.
It's always the old people in anime.
Crushed his face. And Stain is like, you said that if I cross the rope. And he's like, yeah, he said if you cross the rope. I never said anything about me jumping in front of it.
Yeah, see, that's some old anime logic.
Yeah. And destroys them in the face, dude. Like, to the point where he goes back to his shack or whatever, and takes off his mask, and he then begins cutting off the rest of his nose. And that's how Stain has the appearance he has now, and how he has the resolve, as he calls it, to take out fake heroes, because Knuckle Duster gave him his resolve.
Because he lied to him?
Yeah. Well, also, it's like he fought against people that were heroes for the sake of being heroes. They were not looking for accolades. They were not looking for money or fame.
Yeah.
In Stain's eyes, Knuckle Duster and Koichi are true heroes. They meddled where they didn't belong for no money, for no accolade. So the reason why he's as mental as he is because of Knuckle Duster, and that happens in Vigilante. Not enough people know about that. Also, how you were talking about heroes from overseas show up for a major arc in Vigilantes as well. Koichi teams up with one of the top heroes from America, and he gets Captain Celebrity gets sent to Japan because he's a little too handsy, and he has to repair his image because every woman he meets he tries to swoon, and he has a wife and 2 children. So that he goes to Japan.
Sounds about American.
Yeah, right? So he goes to Japan because what's better for your profile than trying to beat All Might? The thing is, he realizes that All Might's on a completely different level than he will ever be. And that's what he learned. That you're not going to keep up with All Might, man.
There's a lot of tie-ins coming. So if we see Captain Celebrity, I'm going to just have to go ahead and just throw back an energy drink, maybe 2 or 3, and just binge all of it. I didn't know it was this much crossover. Is there anybody else? Oh. Is there anyone else that you could see potentially? I know this is like a huge question. I know there has to be, 200 chapters of Vigilante?
No. 109.
109? It's a monthly series, ain't it?
No, every 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. Also, something that I've said, the reason why I've said certain things are going to happen is because of how they're intertwined. I think it's maybe like in chapter like 16 or 17, Koichi likes to go out in the mornings and he likes to stretch by using his quirk. Can't do that. If you do that, get arrested. It's frowned upon in quirk society to do that type of stuff.
Use your quirk at all?
Use your quirk at all.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why, like, one day he's late for work and he starts sliding down the street and a cop tells him, if you slide into somebody, you could seriously hurt them. Stop doing that or else I have to arrest you.
Makes sense.
So one day, he's stretching and he's going as fast as he can. And then all of a sudden, somebody's able to keep up with him. Looks to his right, and it's Ingenium. But it's not Ida. It's Tensei. So he meets Tensei Ida instead of Tenya.
Mm-hmm.
So he meets the older brother. And the older brother is like, you're pretty good at using your quirk. Because, you don't necessarily need to go to school to get a license. If you want, here's my card. Maybe you want to be a hero. Maybe you want to be a sidekick sometime. And Koichi's like, holy crap, you're Ingenium. Yeah, absolutely. And then later on, they both end up on scene together and they save a bunch of people. But then Ingenium is like, oh my God, you're the kid from before. And then one day in the morning, again, when they're stretching and they're racing and Koichi's getting ready to go down the street again, Ingenium appears, says, hey, what's up? How you doing? He goes, I saw you the other night, and I guess you're already doing what you're doing, and what you're doing is right. So I think I'm going to need that card back. And he has to take back his card, his ID, his business card, because he knows Koichi is a vigilante.
Wow.
But the more Stain comes back into the fold, you're going to have a certain vigilante that's like, that's the guy that hurt my friend. So you're going to have Koichi, who also has a grudge against Stain. You're going to have Ida, Tenya, who knows about Stain, possibly meet Koichi, who is also a quote-unquote speedster to a degree. So you have these characters that linger in between series that could, give birth to a crossover.
If they'd have to, yeah, because they'd all be like Aizawa's age at this point. Yeah, why haven't we seen? I need this to happen.
Right? Thank you. Converted. Gotcha.
They have to, because especially since now more than ever, especially in this arc, considering so many heroes have just quit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe they're overseas.
And not to mention, they've been talking about vigilantes. People are doing everything that they want on their own. They're taking law into their own hands. Like, you've mentioned vigilantism for the past 3 months. Give us the vigilante.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think they want to wrap up Vigilantes first before they bring Koichi into the fold. Because right now in Vigilantes, more or less the final battle is happening. That's why Koichi is getting upgrade after upgrade after upgrade after upgrade.
You definitely need that type of heat coming into My Hero Academia, especially.
Exactly. You need to be, now with all the kids and Deku the way that he is, if you're going to introduce a character that's going to act as a mentor, you need him to be obscenely strong. And Koichi has proven to me, and hopefully everyone out there watching this video right now that watches Vigilantes, or reads Vigilantes, that Koichi can definitely stand up with any single one of those heroes in My Hero Academia. I don't think that he would beat Deku in a fight, but I think that he could definitely train Deku to use his quirks a little bit more, because 1, he can fly, and 2, he can shoot blasts from his hands. And we've seen that the first user of One for All uses blasts. So while right now, Deku pretty much has 100% control of his entire kit, it would be nice to see if he could possibly learn new type of techniques, because we've seen that he likes to adapt from other people. Like whether it's, taking kicks from Ida or movement from Bakugo, we've seen that he likes to do that. He likes to copy people. So I think that Koichi would definitely be a perfect foil for Deku to learn from.
That just got me more excited for 2 days from now when the new chapter drops.
I mean, that's the whole thing, right? Like,
if somebody from Vigilante comes in, I'm gonna hit you up again and be like, you was 100% right.
Dude, I don't know how much you've been watching my videos, but I hate to say that I've been like spot on the past couple of times.
You've definitely been
but people have, so like what I've decided to do is, like, I put out my videos the Wednesday. Like, I'm not gonna look at spoilers, but I'll put my video out 6 or 7 hours before the spoilers hit the timeline, just to wake up the next morning and look at my phone and see all the comments going, "You were right, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, how did you know this was gonna happen?" And I'm just like, because my hero is starting to become predictable. I don't want to sound like that, but it is. It's starting to become a little bit predictable. You see what's going to happen, because Horikoshi, I don't want to say Horikoshi has fallen into a predictable pattern that, like, what happens in the beginning of the chapter ends up being the end of the next chapter. Like, I knew that Deku was going to end up back at UA. And I knew certain things that were going to happen because of him returning to UA, because that's just how the dominoes would fall. So I haven't seen anything, so I wouldn't be able to put out a proper prediction. But tomorrow my video for chapter 325 comes back because of the copyright strike, and YouTube forwarded on the paperwork to Shueisha, and once again Shueisha completely ignored their paperwork, so video's gonna come back.
Wow. Anything specific coming up for 325? Do you have any ideas what it's gonna focus on?
So if I had to say anything for chapter 325, I would say that it's likely that we move away from Deku for a little bit. If we do have Deku's story, it would have to be more elaboration on, like, what's going on inside of the UA barrier and stuff like that. But I would say if I had to make 3 predictions for chapter 325, I would say either A, we move back to All Might. We see what happened with the conversation between him and Stain, because that's what we've been trying to figure out, why Stain is shadowing them. 2, we would see Deku be shown around the new facility and eventually maybe crashing and falling asleep, and then maybe getting more singularity time. Or 3, villains. Move back to the villains, see what's going on with Toga, see what's maybe going on with All for One, maybe what's going on with Shigaraki, because Shigaraki's has disappeared since March. Like, we have not seen Shigaraki, because the last time we did quote unquote see Shigaraki, it was All for One, busting out everybody out of Tartarus. I would say if I had to put a rough estimate, I would say it's possible for one of those 3 things, with the 4th being the wild card of, them just continuing Deku's story.
I can see that. I think I would like for them to focus on the villains and go back to seeing their plan or strategies for what they have in order to break into it. But I think that is a great place to end this video off. Anything you want to leave the people off on before I wrap things up?
Look, everyone, be sure to subscribe to Anime Ramble. Be sure to subscribe to Dan Exclaims. Come on, hang out at the bar sometime. I gotta have you over at the bar. Have you come chill. Throw back a couple of brews.
Absolutely. I love your setup. I'm gonna be honest. I love the entire aesthetic of your channel.
I really appreciate it, man. I really do. But it's been a pleasure talking to you, man. I'm really glad you reached out. I really enjoy doing collabs, and maybe next time we talk about Kaiju number 8.
Absolutely. I got a video. I know the chapter dropped today. You got to bring it to the channel, man. Like, you gotta stuff.
I know.
How you deep dive into My Hero. Okay, check this out. You don't like series that are depressing, but it follows kind of similar to Vigilantes in the sense of they have a drug.
Yeah.
You've seen it?
Oh, Kaiju number 8. I have videos about Kaiju.
I'm sorry, Shojin X.
Oh, Shojin X. I read the first chapter with like the plane crash and then the guy turning into a bird and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I have seen the first chapter. I haven't read the second or third chapter yet. I know it's a monthly, but yeah. I haven't given it a chance yet. I'm super deep into Kaiju number 8 now. I absolutely love it because I'm a 30-something, and the fact that there's a shonen protagonist that is finally over the age of 30. And we finally get to see more of him, and it's just a person that like didn't think that they were going to be able to follow their dreams, but then suddenly is thrown a curveball and is able to follow them. That makes Kaiju number 8 so much fun.
I love it. But everybody, definitely subscribe to Dan's channel if you haven't. Thank you again for coming on, and like always, and until next time, I'm out.